Everything from clothing to household items are getting more expensive each day. American Giant is about keeping things simple and close to home. They aren't affected by tariffs because their products never leave the U.S. Support American-made, tariff-free clothing with American Giant. Get 20% off your first order when you use promo code STAPLE20 at American-Giant.com. That's 20% off when you use code STAPLE20 at American-Giant.com.
You are about to listen to the Dr. Daliah Show. Sassy, stimulating medical talk radio. Any medical advice Dr. Daliah Wax gives on her show should not be substituted for an actual visit to your medical provider. And now, here's Dr. Daliah.
We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOC-DALI. Well, we really, really appreciate you guys tuning in. National Radio Day was yesterday, and honestly, we wouldn't be here, and we wouldn't have the show we have if it wasn't for you all. So we really, really appreciate you all for tuning in and being there for us. So this non-citizen migrant who was driving a truck, had a commercial driver's license, ends up doing an illegal U-turn, and then a bus crashing into it is brought in, or a minivan crashing into it, killing all three people in the vehicle, has brought a lot of questions on how are we doing our CDLs, how are we doing our physicals, how are individuals passing these driver's tests without understanding the language. I've driven in multiple foreign countries, and before I drive, I learn the signs. I make myself aware of the traffic rules. Now, in England, it wasn't that difficult to read the signs, but you had to drive on the left side of the road, right? When we were driving stick, you're on the left side of the road, but you drive. It's a challenge. But before I got out on the street, I practiced with Italy, with Germany. Now, I'm driving around Germany on the Autobahn. You know, you'll have exits that say Asphalt. Okay, well, if you don't know what that means, you think that Germany is calling you names. They're not calling you names. Asphalt means exit. And it's not going to look like an American exit where they tell you what street, what number. It just says exit. Meaning if you need to get off, this is where you get off, and you should know what street it is. And so it's a slam dunk. It's common knowledge that wherever you're going to be driving, you need to be aware of the signs. You need to be aware of the language. And to get a commercial driver's license in America, depending on what state you get licensed in, one, you have to be a resident of that state. Two, you have to be able to pass the physical exam for your medical exam, not to mention your driver's test, a written exam. These are things that still require English. When you get the form for your Department of Transportation physical exam, it's all in English. And you have to fill it out. You have to read it. It's fine print. And you have to know what you're filling out. And if you don't fill it out completely, you can't get your exam. Now, I understand a lot of people have interpreters, etc. But whenever we've performed them, we made sure you had some English proficiency, because you're going to be driving in America. Now, some people could say you can memorize the signs, Dr. Daliah. We can memorize the signs. It's fairly simple. The signs don't have letters on them, so they should be common sense. Not always. I live in an area where sometimes on the freeway, there'll be a digital board, and it'll tell you if something's coming up, or it'll tell you there's an accident, or there's going to be a delay, or you need to understand there's flooding up ahead. So if you are operating a commercial vehicle, which can cause a lot of damage to individuals, if you get into an accident, if you are not understanding that there are going to be signs that are going to tell you something, you can't read those, you should not be operating such a dangerous vehicle. That's common sense. So this California licensed trucker Harshinder Singh is accused of causing a fatal crash August 12th in Florida. He pulled an illegal U-turn, and even though you would think, even if he did know English, that was a stupid move. Considering you have a big truck, you can't just flip a Yui. And I understand people start to get into their whole rhythm of, well, I'm driving and I could, make the U-turn. He didn't realize that he could jackknife or the truck will stay, perpendicular to the road. And then here's a minivan, not expecting him to do that on the left side of the road in the left lane, smashes into them and the individuals die. Barely he failed a roadside English proficiency test. This is what federal officials said. And they said he was an illegal immigrant that should have not been licensed. I think he came into the country in 2018. He was supposed to have some court dates, and I don't believe that ever, was followed through on. And he gets the job through California and now is driving across the United States. And unfortunately, this happens. Now, accidents happen. Now, American citizens cause car accidents as well. But, when we do have, and I brought this up years ago, the issue that everybody needs to understand with immigration, just like my family, when they came over to America, they had to learn the language because there's a need to acclimate and assimilate. All right. If you come from a culture where you're allowed to roast your dog, you can't do that in America. Right. So when you do immigrate from and immigrate to America, there's a timeline and there's a process you go through. My family had to learn the language. They had to take a test. They couldn't take the test in their language. They had to take the test in English to show that they were proficient in English. And then by the time they took the test and did all that, they acclimated to the way things are done in America. And so when we bypass that process and individuals come across without going through the typical process, whether they're vetted or not, they don't acclimate. And he's been here since 2018 and he still never learned English. 7 years in America, you would think you would have some proficiency in English by then. But we haven't, put that on our immigrant. We haven't said, look, you're going to come here. We're going to help you assimilate. You're going to take classes. We don't do that to the degree that we used to. So my family could come over, learn the language, take the test, start paying taxes, and become legal citizens of America. Now it's a mess. We have so many people that came across and they aren't getting that opportunity, or they aren't showing themselves to get to do the process correctly. And this is a mess. So, to answer people's questions on DOT physicals and the CDL process, there's a lot of criteria you have to meet. And if somebody is getting passed through, it's dangerous for them and other Americans. 1-877-DOC-DALIAH. Don't go away.
Finding great candidates to hire can be like, well, trying to find a needle in a haystack. Sure, you can post your job to some job board, but then all you can do is hope the right person comes along. Which is why you should try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/zip. ZipRecruiter doesn't depend on candidates finding you. It finds them for you. Its powerful technology identifies people with the right experience and actively invites them to apply to your job. You get qualified candidates fast. So while other companies might deliver a lot of hay, ZipRecruiter finds you what you're looking for. The needle in the haystack.
See why 4 out of 5 employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. And right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free. That's right, free at ZipRecruiter.com/zip. That's ZipRecruiter.com/zip. ZipRecruiter.com/zip.
Have you ever thought you'd like to buy and sell houses but didn't know how or where to get the money? My name is Ron LeGrand, and over the past 40 years, I've bought over 3,000 houses without using my money or credit and taught thousands to do the same. Today, even in a virtual environment, we buy nice houses in nice neighborhoods using no banks, realtors, contractors, or other costly entanglements, and build huge cash flow and wealth without the hassle of tenants, all without credit and little or no money. You don't need a license or experience, and I'll show you exactly how it's done. Text FREE to 99799, and I'll send you my free training. I promise you I'll change the way you think about real estate and open the door to a new lifestyle that doesn't involve risk or rehabs and can quickly replace your current income. Text FREE to 99799 and let me show you how to take your life back and build cash flow and wealth from your home. That's FREE to 99799. Again, FREE to 99799.
Hey guys, it's Dr. Daliah. Fantasy football season is coming, but sadly, too many of you are taking the bench while the country takes part in one of the most exciting and lucrative industries out there. Don't know how to play? Well, huddle up and listen. Paul Kalikas and I have written a fantasy football pocket guide for beginners. This book walks you through the basics and shows you how simple and lucrative joining or creating a fantasy football team can be. Read our fantasy football pocket guide for beginners found on Amazon or follow the links on X and Facebook. That's Fantasy Football Pocket Guides for Beginners. Don't be left out.
At Hotshot Secret, we share the science behind common diesel problems. For example,
diesel fuel cetane levels.
The cetane rating in diesel fuel is 42 to 45. Most diesel engines operate more efficiently with a cetane rating of 48 to 50. One treatment of Hotshot Secret Diesel Extreme will raise your cetane 7 points, increase fuel economy, and improve cold starts.
Hotshot Secret Diesel Extreme is available nationwide at truck stops, fine farm and auto stores, and online at hotshotsecret.com. Hotshot Secret, powered by science.
Warning, the following ZipRecruiter radio spot you are about to hear is going to be filled with F words.
When you're hiring, we at ZipRecruiter know you can feel frustrated, forlorn even, like your efforts are futile, and you can spend a fortune trying to find fabulous people, only to get flooded with candidates who are just fine. Fortunately, ZipRecruiter figured out how to fix all that. And right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/zip. With ZipRecruiter, you can forget your frustrations because we find the right people for your roles fast, which is our absolute favorite F word. In fact, 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day.
Fantastic!
So, whether you need to hire 4, 40, or 400 people, get ready to meet first-rate talent. Just go to ZipRecruiter.com/zip to try ZipRecruiter for free. Don't forget, that's ZipRecruiter.com/zip. Finally, that's ZipRecruiter.com/zip.
We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOC-DALI. Big thanks to Talk Media Network for making the show happen. Big thanks to Daniel, our producer, and big thanks to y'all for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter or X at Dr. Daliah, Facebook, The Dr. Daliah Show, and on YouTube. Click like and subscribe. So last year I talked to you guys about how I get a lot of patients that'll call in brain fog, fatigue, itching, headaches, diarrhea. And I don't always screen for indolent systemic mastocytosis. And it's a rare disease, but it's probably one of the most commonly missed diseases. And so I am really excited about our next guest. We have Jackie, a retired nurse with indolent systemic mastocytosis, as well as Dr. Doreen Siri, an allergist and immunologist, to talk to us about what this is and what to look for. Jackie, we are so grateful, you and Dr. Siri, to come on. I'm going to start with you. Can you talk to us about your journey with indolent systemic mastocytosis? What were, some of the symptoms you experienced and how your doctor concluded that that's what was going on?
Certainly. I started having symptoms back in the 1990s when I was working as a nurse. I had migraine headaches, an itchy rash on my neck and my chest. I had stomach problems. I had GI problems, a lot of diarrhea. I had a lot of itchiness all over my body. I would have blood blisters the size of marbles in my mouth. It was just a messy situation. And I brushed those symptoms back and just thought it was the stress of my job until the symptoms did not go away. And that's when I started seeking medical help. And I went to many, many doctors who didn't have a good grip on it or didn't understand it. And finally, in 2014, I was diagnosed with ISM after a bone marrow biopsy and a blood test. So it took almost 25 years to get there.
Wow. Dr. Siri, talk to us about ISM and how it impacts patients.
It's an absolute pleasure to be here to talk to you about ISM. This is obviously in partnership with Blueprint Medicine that manufactures, of course, AYVAKIT to treat it. Simply put, ISM, you've touched on a lot of those points already. It is patients who have these constellation of symptoms. They have brain fog, they have a weird skin rash, they have allergic type symptoms like anaphylaxis, hives, flushing. They don't know what's going on, but it's certainly out of proportion to a regular allergy patient. They may even think they have new onset food allergies to multiple foods, and now they feel like they're sensitive to a bunch of chemicals and smells, and so really, really debilitating to some patients. Simply put, it is an overactive immune system. The mast cell, M-A-S-T cell, a regular, as you know, immune cell in our bodies, a white cell that now genetically mutated and is manufacturing day and night, and now we have too many mast cells, and they invade the skin, the gut, the nervous system, and that's why we have these symptoms. And we all know that mast cells are responsible for allergies as well, so that's why people think they're having allergic reactions, because there's just way too much histamine and other chemicals now being produced from these mast cells.
You know, many patients, they struggle to have a primary care provider. Some insurances allow them to go straight to a specialist, and patients will call up, because I work for a telemedicine company, going, where should I go? Should I go to an allergist? Should I go to a dermatologist? Because so many primary care providers are not necessarily trained, and having a grip, as Jackie said on this, which specialist do you recommend that they see? The allergist, immunologist, dermatologist, hematologist? Who would you recommend they start with?
I think that really depends on the symptom that they're actually having the worst. So many patients end up seeing a dermatologist if they have a skin rash. But like you and I, there are a lot of patients who basically present to us like they don't have a rash. So you and I take care of these patients who don't have a rash, but they have these other symptoms, like weird allergies. So in that case, I think an allergist immunologist is definitely appropriate, or even just family medicine primary care saying, hey, you know, these allergies are out of proportion to what I really think is going on. Maybe a blood test is run. I don't really have that many allergies. What's going on? Let's see if I can get a referral.
Exactly. And now we have a fantastic treatment for that. Talk to us about the treatment.
Yes. Is it okay if I start, Jackie?
Yes.
So the treatment is something called AYVAKIT. It is not an antihistamine. It's not something you get over the counter. It's the first and only FDA-approved medication for the treatment of indolent systemic mastocytosis. It is a precision medicine. It specifically targets that gene mutation that occurs in most people with the indolent form of systemic mastocytosis, so it interrupts the manufacture of those mast cells. So in clinical trials, of course, we saw a decreased burden of mast cells, but also those symptoms, 50% reduction or more of brain fog, skin symptoms, gut symptoms, allergic-type symptoms, so really helpful.
That's fantastic. And Jackie has experience with it. Talk to us, Jackie, about how the treatment has gone.
I started taking AYVAKIT 2 years ago, just after it was approved by the FDA for ISM treatment. And I had a chat with my doctor about it before I started it, and he told me about the possible side effects and what I could expect. And yes, I did have some side effects, but they only lasted maybe 3 weeks, and then my symptoms that I had carried with me for years started going away, and within about 6 months, about 80% of the symptoms were gone.
Wow. You know, it's interesting because a lot of us will just live with the symptoms, and we struggle, and we're obviously, we want to use a drug that's safe. We want a drug with minimal side effects. But I have patients who suffer from various illnesses, and they struggle so much that they're struggling more than what a side effect could be. And so you really have to have that balance. And so, can I ask what side effects you had that were transient?
Yes, I became very short of breath, and I had trouble standing up straight, very fatigued, and I had brain fog.
Now, how's your functioning now? How do you feel now?
Great. Those symptoms went away within about 3 weeks.
Wow. Wonderful. Dr. Siri, so, this therapy is a great option. What do you recommend for patients who have ISM and these symptoms?
Yes, absolutely. Of course, the first step is diagnosis. It's a simple blood test, which is a blood spot. It doesn't even require a whole tube of blood. So blood spot test. And if they meet criteria, then we go on to do a bone marrow biopsy. And in those patients, if they're taking baseline usual medications for their symptoms, not getting relief, then Ayvakit would be appropriate. And these symptoms, side effects that Jackie had, the most common are swelling around the eyes, swelling in the extremities. We don't give it to patients who have really low platelets, but otherwise it's been really well tolerated in my patients as well. And it does have to be monitored by a physician, whether it's you or me or someone pretty closely.
I agree with that. It is easily tolerated.
Love it. Jackie, any other advice you have for patients who are struggling like you had?
Absolutely. Number one, you're not alone. There are many people available to help you. You just have to find the right group of people to do that. Search for a physician who is willing to listen to you and validates what you have to say. Secondly, understand the illness. Go online, Google ISM, and learn at your own pace. There are several support groups out there. Perhaps you could join one of those, or just go on one of the sites and read what they have to say. And thirdly, never give up.
Jackie, thank you so much for coming on. Dr. Siri, where can my viewers go for more information?
Absolutely. You can go to ayvakit.com. That's AYVAKIT.com. There's general information about ISM. There's information about the medication, and certainly other resources like, Mast Cell Society is really helpful for kind of the general public as well.
Dr. Doreen Siri, Jackie, thank you so much. Thank you for coming on. We really, really appreciate it, and we can't wait to have you back.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOC-DALI. Another take-home message from this is if you don't think your doctor is listening, and it could just be they haven't been trained in shall we say ISM, or don't give up. If you think something's wrong, get yourself checked out, and sometimes it takes seeing a specialist if you need to. 1-877-DOC-DALI. Don't go away.
Finding great candidates to hire can be like, well, trying to find a needle in a haystack. Sure, you can post your job to some job board, but then all you can do is hope the right person comes along. Which is why you should try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/zip. ZipRecruiter doesn't depend on candidates finding you. It finds them for you. Its powerful technology identifies people with the right experience and actively invites them to apply to your job. You get qualified candidates fast. So while other companies might deliver a lot of hay, ZipRecruiter finds you what you're looking for. The needle in the haystack.
See why 4 out of 5 employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. And right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free. That's right, free at ZipRecruiter.com/zip. That's ZipRecruiter.com/zip. ZipRecruiter.com/zip. Looking for a gift that can actually help secure someone's future? It's Mark Falter's new book, Common Sense Income Strategies. It makes the perfect gift for that special someone in your life. Mark has helped thousands of hardworking Americans secure their financial future by using time-tested strategies that continue to create wealth, whether the market is up or down. Strategies that will make perfect sense once you take the time to read this powerful book. Common Sense Income Strategies brings to you what Mark has been teaching in person and talking about on the radio for decades. You've worked too long and too hard not to see the fruits of your labor. To learn how to receive your free copy, call 866-764-2635. That's 866-764-2635. Secure your future with Common Sense Income Strategies by Mark Falter. Again, to learn how to receive your free copy, call 866-764-2635. That's 866-764-2635.
All right. We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-Dr. Daliah, 1-877-DOCDALI. Yeah, I'm going to be driving around Israel. I'm already studying up on my, like rules and the language and where to park. My mom's going to be requiring her wheelchair. I got her an electric wheelchair scooter, so I got to figure out where to park. By the way, if you have a handicap parking permit in America, that doesn't mean you could use that in another country. And to go through the process of handicap parking in another country is a pretty long, drawn out one. So she gets dropped off on the sidewalk, and that's, I think, how I'm going to do it. And then just I'll find parking and then walk over to her. So that's on my to-do list, to make sure I learn everything I need to learn as I'm taking her to Israel next month. But I've been talking about for the longest time how we have cardiac stress tests to see if somebody is prone to, or at risk of having a heart attack, if they're having coronary artery disease and artery blocking that would prevent there from being adequate blood flow to the heart muscle. And we have these stress tests that we use in the cardiology realm, but I think we need mental stress tests. And before you marry somebody, before you move in with somebody, before you hire somebody, before you allow them anywhere near a school campus, we're struggling to find the next murderer, the next abuser, the next criminal. And we do stress tests in a way for our heart and for physical issues. How do you come up with something for mental health? It's interesting. I've been speaking about this for years on my show, and there was a meme I saw last year or the year before where it said, don't marry anybody until you could see how they react with no internet for a few hours. And if they could get through that, they're a keeper. And it's so true. There are certain things that I notice cause people to melt down. Yeah, if the internet's down, the internet's down. Yes, it does drive you crazy if you can't access the world and let them know, look, the internet's down, I'm having an issue. Usually your backup phone is on 5G, so you could still somehow post. And I've done that in the past, saying, look, my computers are down. I'm not ignoring you. Right? Just leave a message if you can, and I'll get to you as soon as I could get access to a computer again. And so there is that anxiety. But when people melt down and get very, very grumpy over internet, over a cell phone, that's pretty telling. Now, another thing I'm seeing, because I want to figure out what could be the next mental stress test. What could we do for individuals where if we really need to see that they're going to not lose it and hurt other people or completely fall apart and not be able to do their job, what sort of stress test mentally can we put them through? And, in the military, this is something I think Pete Hegseth wants to bring back. I don't want it to be like Full Metal Jacket, where the drill sergeant is just beating somebody up so verbally that they end up committing suicide. But there is a stress test that new recruits get in a way to ensure that they could handle the stress. In fact, in medicine, one of the reasons why we were told we were mistreated and yelled at and verbally abused is because they wanted to build up a resilience. And what's very interesting is, as much as I disagree with how a lot of that was done, and I wouldn't really recommend that, I do have to note that I am a lot more resilient. There's not a lot you could say to me that's going to make me crumble. I mean, being told in the middle of a trauma, you're this, you dumb blank, and, you're stupid, and the surgeon was smacking me with the instruments, and you get through that, somebody calling you a dumbass, that doesn't faze you. It was interesting. We were watching Hell's Kitchen when it first started, and my kids are really little, and they're watching Gordon Ramsay, and they start getting all nervous because he's yelling. And I go, that's nothing. They go, Mom, that doesn't scare you? And I go, no. He's like a little kitten compared to who I dealt with in medical training. Piece of cake. So there is a certain resilience. On the other end, you get abused so much, you can never recover. So that's why I said I don't think it's the way to do it. I don't think it's the way to train, doctors and medical students. And then for military recruits, there has to be a safe but smart way of doing that. Well, I think I might have figured out what we could do for a mental stress test, because almost every week in the news, somebody has a meltdown on a plane or at an airport. So I don't know if you saw this. This woman, and not good, but I guess Silomit Velez Rodriguez was, I guess, at Orlando International Airport, and she appeared to have a meltdown. And she was yelling at Southwest employees, screaming the MF word. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? She was screaming. Don't know why she was screaming that. She was wearing large backpack shorts. She's yelling at an employee. Apparently, she was trying to get to her destination to bury her brother. So she is undergoing a lot of stress, but then she appears to kick the employee. So on the video, you hear people going, gosh, that's assault. She full-blown profanity, according to Fox News. And then she hits a Southwest desk monitor 3 times, saying 2 flights wasted, 2 flights, 3 planes after 45 minutes. So travelers call the police. She gets escorted off. And then I think she hits another computer monitor. Right? So obviously she's stressed, going through a lot, but completely loses it at an airport. Now, I've been to airports. I've been very, very frustrated. And, when your flight is delayed, or they give away your seat, or something stupid, you're grumpy. Also, you're paid for $10 bottles of water. It's a very stressful situation. And I'm wondering if that might be a good stress test. Just, okay, you're going to fly to, let's say it's a job interview. This would be a great stress test, okay? You're going to be interviewed for a residency. You're going to be interviewed for a job. And they work it where your plane keeps getting delayed, or you keep having issues with your flight. How do you react? How do you act? If you have a complete meltdown, you're probably not going to be fit, to work in a hospital or to work in a school, because you can't handle and you aren't as flexible, and you choose to kick or scream or whatever. And I understand she's going through a lot of stress if her brother died, but you don't kick another employee and you don't start breaking equipment. Now, another thing that I've also noticed is we as humans are expected to put on a suit and tie and have our hair a certain way and, hold our hands going, okay, well, that's unfortunate. That's not in our human instinct. Our human instinct is we want to punch a wall. We want to kick something. We want to yell and scream. And when kids throw temper tantrums, I always tell parents, let their child have their cry. Now, if they're doing it in the middle of a restaurant, what I used to do is if my kids went through a temper tantrum, I pulled them out of the restaurant, I threw them into the car, either put the air conditioning on or the heat or open the window. I stood outside the car and I'm like, okay, go yell, do all the yelling you need. Are you done? Wah! All right, just tell me when you're done. I got all the time in the world. I can do my nails. I'm good. You done now? Good. You hoarse? Now let's go back in. And I did that because one is they saw the futility of kind of yelling and screaming, but also on the other end, it was a release. And I noticed they really didn't have to do that much longer. After a couple times of that, I don't, yeah. So that kind of handled the whole temper tantrums. And so when people are frustrated and they feel there's no outlet, they're going to combust. And so we need to make sure we have outlets. This is why I tell parents, make sure your kids are in sports, have like a punching bag so they don't punch their brothers or sisters. But we need to work better as society, how we could stress somebody to see their true mental health and how to give people appropriate releases. Maybe we need a yelling room where we could go into an airport and just scream, this sucks. And then go out and go, okay, I'm ready for my flight. 1-877-DOC-DALIAH, don't go away.
Hey guys, it's Clyde. We've had a lot of requests for Ground Zero merchandise, so we put together an online store with a big variety of high-quality items. I'm really excited to let you know about these things. We have a lot to offer you and your loved ones. In addition to our regular apparel, such as t-shirts, beanies, hoodies, and hats, we've expanded our product line with posters, flags, aprons, mugs, and a whole lot more. We also have Ground Zero collectibles along with a limited edition of items like a Clyde Lewis canvas portrait, a Ground Zero embroidered jacket that will certainly make for great gifts and for interesting conversations with family and friends. And we now offer publications such as Ron Patton's book about mind control, MK Zine, and back copies of the official magazine of Ground Zero while it was in print. Paranoia, the Conspiracy Reader, also coming in 2023, are updated and revised books that I've written. There's a secure and easy-to-use shopping cart for your purchases. So shop today at our official store by going to groundzeromerch.com. Again, that's groundzeromerch.com.
Hi guys, Dr. Daliah here. Addictions can sneak up on us and come in many forms, whether it's drugs, alcohol, sex, video games, porn, or something less obvious such as food, internet, or shopping. Addiction can seem innocent at first and then evolve into an insurmountable evil. In our book, Addiction Basics, Caitlin Kalikas and I dive into the common addictions and provide tips for identifying and preventing these before they sneak in and take over our lives. Addiction Basics can be found on Amazon or my website, drdaliah.com. Check it out.
Lisa Wolf here to tell you about our newest website for old-time radio lovers. It's 100radioshows.com. At this site, there are 5 old-time radio shows waiting for you to download free as our gift to you. And be sure to browse the additional 700 old-time radio shows available to you for 70% off by using the promo code RADIO at checkout. This is a limited-time offer, so log on to 100radioshows.com. That's 100radioshows.com.
We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So last year, when the case against New York, the case in New York against President Donald Trump, that was brought on by New York Attorney General Letitia James, as opposed to Trump's loans that he applied for and the valuation of his assets, where it resulted in a close to $500 million penalty. That made us scratch our heads going, say what? It was obviously excessive. We thought it violated rights. Where was the precedent set on something like that? And then does everybody who lists something on Craigslist saying it's worth more than it actually is, do they also get fined millions of dollars? Where's the precedence and what's going on here? Well, apparently a New York appellate division has overturned the penalty, ruling the disgorgement was an excessive fine that violates the 8th Amendment. The 5-member panel all upheld findings that Trump and his company were liable, affirming that James acted within her authority and that injunctive relief to curb Trump organization practices was appropriate. So the ruling does leave the liability intact, but it does eliminate the massive financial penalty of $364 million with interest, ends up bringing it to now about 500 million. So he's really, really happy about that. According to Trump, he wrote total victory in the fake New York State Attorney General Letitia James case. I greatly respect the fact that the court had the courage to throw out this unlawful and disgraceful decision that was hurting business all throughout New York State. Others were afraid to do business there. The amount, including interest and penalties, was over $550 million. He says it was a political witch hunt in a business sense, the likes of which no one has ever seen before. He also had called this case election interference because he was tried during the 2024 presidential campaign. And, Letitia James, again, it was very highly suspect because that's what she campaigned on. I'm going to get Trump. I'm going to get Trump. And, you're looking at all the court cases against him. Meanwhile, there's rapists and murderers, and it was so obvious, the bias and the lack of attention to what was legal and constitutional, that it's at least this is a win for Trump. But I'm still very uneasy about how, depending on where you get tried, depending on who your state's attorney general is, will depend on what you get in trouble for or not. You'd think it was simple, just don't break the law. But if somebody is taking a look and says, you know what, you valued your business, your property, this much, and that's egregious, and then they just start piling things on, it's overbearing. It's a huge overstep and abuse and extortion. So the New York's executive law gives State Attorney General Letitia James broad power to pursue civil fraud claims, and this gave her essentially, quote, from what some experts say, limitless power to prosecute her political enemies. Not cool. Now, nobody got harmed from this. However, he paid the bank his bank fees, his loans, his interest. He didn't hurt anybody. He paid he followed everything legally that he was supposed to do. Why does it turn out to be a case this ridiculous? So Letitia James, I think, has her own issues, right? With real estate. Didn't she kind of run into her own set of problems with what she was doing, and I think where she was claiming residency, etc. So I'm really sick of politicians. This is why people don't have trust in the system. It should be a slam dunk as to, if you violate a law, you kill somebody, you hurt somebody, you rape somebody, you steal, then you're in trouble. And this is very easy to follow. It's in fifth grade reading level. You don't need to have gone to Harvard Law to understand the law or statute. It makes sense. Like in medicine, a lot of doctors are confused by Stark laws. Let's say they have a family member that owns a pharmacy or a lab, and they refer somebody to that pharmacy or lab to get a test. Well, that can violate Stark laws. It looks like you are, in essence, ordering a test for your own gain because you have shall we say, a investment in there or an interest. Well, and some doctors are confused by that because they're like, but this is the pharmacy I really like to use. I trust this pharmacy. I trust this doctor. I'm not going to send somebody to a place I don't trust. And so, the laws can be very, very confusing. And I think also intent has to also play a role. A lot of doctors get very freaked out about Medicare fraud, where they say, what if my biller, like I had a biller that built a pap smear on a man. The day I found that was the day after the visit because I reviewed, thank God I decided to review what the billers were doing. I saw this. I called up Medicare. They laughed. They said, fine, don't worry about it. Just pay us the money back. I go, no. I don't want to get paid on it. Do not pay us on it. I fired the biller. This was a ridiculous mistake. I don't know what she was thinking. Don't pay us. They go, we can't. If it's in the system, it's going to go in the system. If you do. And so, I think, I don't really remember if we got paid at all because Medicare didn't pay on all the claims. But whatever we were supposed to do, we did. But that was, there was no intent. And a lot of doctors say, I don't want to take Medicare because if somebody makes a mistake or a biller makes a mistake, now I could be in trouble for fraud, and so you have a lot of people say, no, I'm not even going to go there. I'm not going to do any state-run or government-run health insurance because I don't want the liability and I don't want to be accused. And so laws should not be this distorted and confusing. It shouldn't be like this. And laws should not, the prosecutions should not be so politically biased. You can't sit here and campaign saying, I'm going to get somebody, and then sit here and say, well, we could nail him for this, and this. All right, now let's make a case. When you have other cases that were obvious in terms of law, so that were broken. If somebody breaks a law, I mean, hands down, you need to be prosecuted. But now you're saying, well, if we look at it this way, there's a violation somehow. And it was ridiculous. And what amazes me is how Trump kept going. Trump even said, I don't need to be president again. Now, personally, I think he did. I think he wanted to show that that's not really what the 2020 voters wanted. He wanted to finish, the job he started, and he didn't want it to look like he got fired. And I think he really, really needed this win. But he would tell us that, in the media, that I don't need to do this again. I don't need to be shot at. I don't need to be prosecuted. But I'm doing this because I really want to fix America. And people are pretty grateful for that because he could have left, but he's not a chicken. And he didn't stop. And gosh, they threw everything at him. And it's pretty admirable that he kept going. And, Letitia James, if this is what our attorney generals are spending their time on when there's so many other cases, and I get, she wants to build her own political career. Everybody's looking at 2028, who's going to run for the next president and vice president, and everybody wants to now get their, get their name in the paper. And you're seeing these legislators in Texas and everybody trying to kind of get their name in the paper. Look, we have a job to do. And if you do not do it ethically, people lose faith. And once they lose faith, they're not going to vote for you either. 1-877 Doc Daliah.
Looking for an easy read that can actually help secure someone's future? Pick up a copy of Mark Falter's book, Common Sense Income Strategies. For the past 30-plus years, Mark has helped thousands of hardworking Americans secure their financial future by using strategies that continue to create wealth, whether the market is up or down. Strategies that will make perfect sense once you take the time to read this powerful book. Common Sense Income Strategies brings to you what Mark has been teaching in person and talking about on the radio for decades. It's not rocket science, it's a pretty easy read. You've worked too long and too hard not to see the fruits of your labor. Common Sense Income Strategies is available now on Amazon or by calling 866-764-2635. That's 866-764-2635. Common Sense Income Strategies by financial fitness show host Mark Falter. Secure your financial future today.